Go for it.
All right. I'll just wait for Jen to hit that little button right there. Thank you, Jen.
Okay.
Hello. Thanks for coming to our class with Sculpey and Michaels, and welcome to our community classroom. I'm Amy Karanik. I'm a brand ambassador for Sculpey. And today we are going to be doing kind of a combo project where I'm going to show you how to make some pretty earrings. We'll get to those in a second, but right here in front of me, I want to show you how we're using one color scheme, and we are doing a little planter pot and a terrazzo style vase and a jar with a beautiful floral slab top. And then this is a liquid Sculpey band around the middle. And then we're going to translate all of those Sculpey designs into some earrings as well. So these earrings utilize the floral slab that I showed you on top of the jar. These earrings do the same marbling technique that we did on the little planter pot. And then these earrings use that same terrazzo patterned effect that we did on the vase. I'm going to scoot those out of my way, and I want to introduce you to our color scheme. I went crazy on this color scheme because it's my favorite. Now, in addition to these colors, which is bright green pearl, peacock pearl, purple pearl, orange, we also used white, but I've already sheeted all that. And then what I did was I tinted each and every one of those colors with gray granite. Now, you wouldn't think about it. This gray granite kind of looks like a sandy color. It's got big and little speckles in it. It's my favorite color. You wouldn't actually think about tinting it or using it as a blending color, but I do. And so I'm hoping that as we go along here, maybe the orange one will show better. I tinted each of those other colors with the gray granite, and you just get these wonderful speckly effects throughout each color, and it kind of makes all the colors work super well together. So I'll get this out of my way, and I want to show you the first step that we want to do. First, we are going to create this band out of liquid Sculpey, and this is Peacock Pearl liquid Sculpey, which matches this Peacock Pearl perfectly. And we're going to create this band so that it can go in the oven and get baked ahead of time, because unless liquid is baked, it's not going to work too well. So what I have here is the lace silicone mold. This goes right in the oven. This is a Sculpey product. And if you've never used liquid Sculpey, I want you to know that's real important to stir it first. So take that lid completely off. Get yourself a long tool, like maybe a knitting needle or a long skewer or something that can reach way down to the bottom, and get that all stirred up in there. So that's what I'm doing, and that's important to do anytime you're using liquid clays. Let me just set that aside. Next, we want to put the lid right back on. This lid, you can open it wide up when you're filling a mold. And so what I want to do is just put a generous amount of liquid Sculpey right over my silicone mold. And then I'm going to close this up. And I'm actually going to take the lid off so that I can show you how miserly I am with not wasting this product. The lace silicone mold comes with this great little squeegee, which is real important for spreading the liquid. So at first, my main concern is just to spread that liquid all around and get it in all the little nooks and crannies of that mold. And I can see where I need more liquid is where there's little dark spots that are appearing. So I just keep working at it until the mold is completely full. I've got a lot of liquid here, so I'm just going to scrape that right back into the bottle because I don't want to waste it. It's good stuff. Liquid Sculpey is one of my favorite things. Liquid Sculpey is the next best thing to come along since regular Sculpey. So it's pretty easy to have two favorites, Sculpey and Liquid Sculpey. All right. Next, now that I've got that really well filled, I've got all the little cracks and crevices filled, I just want to go ahead and use my squeegee to drag off the excess from the pattern so that my pattern is really well defined. The baking instructions for Liquid Sculpey are printed on the side of the bottle and also on the website, sculpey.com. you have any questions. All the baking instructions are there for you. So this piece would need to go in the oven and get cured. It stays in the mold until it's completely done. That would go right into the oven. I bake it about 20 minutes at 275, and I'll show you what that looks like later when it's ready to come out of the mold. In the meantime, we're going to start mixing up our clay and working on our projects. So what I have here is how I told you I mixed all the colors with gray granite. And I think you can see pretty well, especially this green one over here, you can really see all that, those peppery flecks and speckles in there. That one's the bright green pearl with gray granite. This one's the purple pearl, orange, peacock pearl. And then this is the white. And you can also see that it's got those great speckles throughout. So my formula for this was, for the colors with the gray granite, I used equal amounts of color in gray granite. For example, this green color is 1/8 of a bar. That's 1/8 right there, that little nub sticking out. 1/8 of a bar of the bright green pearl with 1/8 of a bar of gray granite. And that's how I did all of these. I used that same proportion. For the white, I used the white, 2 parts of white to 1 part of the gray granite. So it was a little bit of a thicker mix. Now I also set aside this tiny, tiny bit of gray granite that I just wanted to have on hand to use straight without tinting it.
Amy, can you talk a little bit how you got it blended so well so that it was evenly distributed and there weren't like swirls? And
Sure, yes. So to get it, that's a great question. And to get it really evenly distributed, you can do a couple different things. You can use a pasta machine, which comes in super duper handy for this type of project because we need a lot of flat sheets. So for example, a pasta machine helps you, I've got one right over here to my side, and it helps you make really even sheets. And if you push 2 colors, oh, thank you, Raina. If you push clay through here, equal amounts in about 20 passes through that machine, you'll have perfectly blended clay. And what you do is you fold it in half, and you always put the fold through first, and that helps eliminate and push out air bubbles. Now you can mix all these by hand. This is Premo oven baked clay, and it's soft and squishy. So you can, mix it by hand and just condition it with your fingertips until it's evenly distributed. Likewise, you can stop blending before it's perfectly distributed, and that gives a really beautiful look as well. So that was a great question. So the first project I want to work on is the white background that we're going to need for this jar top, and also that we're going to use to make this, what we call a floral slab. Now a slab is just a flat sheet like this. It could be any thickness, and basically what you're doing is just decorating the top, and we call that a slab. And so what I have here is some white mixed with gray granite, and I need enough of this that I can get the lid for the jar out of it. I'm going to need to cut 2 of these for earrings, and I'm going to need to cut 1 of these because later we're going to use that same floral slab to do the top of this earring. So the whole point of it is that we have all these colors that match, and we have this great range of mix and match ability by making different techniques and by making, but all in the same colorway. Let me move this up a little higher so that you can see. And I have enough clay already. I know that I can get all of those items out of there. Okay, so for starters, what I want to do is put some green stems in my background for my floral slab. And maybe if I take this, maybe you can just see it right there. That looks pretty good. The green stems in the background are how I'm going to make what I'm going to start with. So I'm just using a sharp blade, and I'm going to cut some really fine lines of pieces that I can use for stems. And I'm just going to go back in here and just kind of doodle away by laying down some stems.
Hey, Amy, how thick is your white piece? Okay,
my white piece is about 1/8 of an inch thick. It is the thickest setting on a pasta machine, or if you're rolling by hand, with one of these, like a clay acrylic roller, then you can measure that to about 1/8, and that's how thick this is. I rarely ever go thicker than 1/8 unless I'm trying to make something that's super sturdy. So I'm just positioning some of this green and then tearing it. And I'm really just doing a little doodly thing there. Okay, so that gives me some stems for the background. Next, I'm going to pull in some cutters, and I'm going to use this tiny square and this tiny circle. And from the circle shape, I'm going to cut several of this Peacock pearl blend. These sheets here are more like a 1/16 of an inch thick. They are not nearly, they're half as thick as the background because I want my pieces to really lay flat in there. So all of my colors are sheeted to about 1/16 of an inch. So these round circles are eventually we're gonna turn these into flowers, and maybe just one more. So just randomly position those. And then we'll use the square cutter, and we will make some purple granite. We'll also make some square flowers. And I'm going to show you in just a few minutes how easy it is to translate these geometric shapes into floral shapes. One of the things I love most when I'm working is to take tools that I already have and use them in a new way to produce something different. So for example, I have these circle and square cutters, which you can get at Michael's, and I don't need to buy flower shapes because I can just turn these into flowers. Okay, so the way that I did that for the circle ones, I just used this little knife tool and kind of pulled petals from the edges. So just go around to each of your Peacock pearl circles, and if you work from the outside inward and just pull that clay, it's soft enough to kind of make a little divot that looks like petals. And now we've gone from round to a 5-petaled flower. Then for the squares, I'm going to use this blunt pointed tool, and I'm going to pull the sides in, the long sides, to make that look like petals. These slab designs are super popular right now for polymer clay artists. I think they're so popular because you can make them exactly the size you want. They don't create a lot of waste, and you can just kind of doodle away and let your imagination go where it will. So those are the little flower shapes I have. Now I want to make a center in each one. And so I'm taking some of this, excuse me, my ruler's in the way. I'm taking some of this gray granite that wasn't mixed, and I'm just rolling a little rope like this. And I'm going to section my little rope into some little balls. And then I'll roll those up and position those in the center of each flower. And as I'm doing so, my needle tool has this really flat, little nice, perfectly round circle on the end. And I'm just using that to seat these down.
Hey, Amy, when
Yes.
you're done with this, can you do a close-up so they can see it?
Sure can. I sure will. So I'm just laying the little gray granite pieces in there and flattening them out with this tool. Okay, and then let me add a few more details before I show it to you up close. I'm going to go back in the center of each petal and prick a little line to give them more texture and detail. And you just want to be consistent as you're working on these slabs, and do the same thing to each flower. Now the flower slab is kind of the most involved, and that's why I was real careful not to do a way bigger background than I actually need, because it is quite involved, and the more you add to it, then the more you have to do. So let me add just one more design element, and then I'll hold it up and show you. What I want to do next is add a little orange detail to the center of each flower. And I can flatten those with my flattening tool as well. And then I'll show you where we're at. There we go. Just flatten them all down. If you're not careful, you could get this thing going really thick, and we don't want to do that. We want to keep them all kind of down low to the surface. All right, let me pick this up and show you what we have going. Can you see that? Well, there's a message up there, Raina, so I want to make sure I was reading what it says.
Okay.
All right, there's the design so far, and you can see all the little details in each flower. So that's fun. Okay, let's move on and make some little leaves. And the way I like to make leaves out of this sheet of clay is I'm going to cut some long strips. And these are about a little more than probably than 1/8 of an inch wide. And then I'm cutting across them at an angle. So I'm actually just producing a lot of little diamond shapes. And then I can pick up these little diamonds with this blunt-ended tool and just start going. I can either pick them up or I can just put them all over the place. And this really fills up the background. And it's fine to overlay them, like even over some of the flowers. Just make sure you put that little diamondy pointed tip right up next to the vines. And as I'm building this, I just love seeing all those little speckles from the gray granite. Just kind of connects everything together because they all have it. And it kind of creates a family of colors. It's super loose and doodly, not real precise or anything, just fun.
Can you talk a little bit about work surfaces? Like what you could work on? Like right now you're working on our clay mat, but parchment paper, wax paper, aluminum. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like Jen said, I am working on our work and bake clay mat, which you can actually pick up and put right in your oven. Other surfaces, if you don't have the clay mat, you could use a large piece of glass or a large ceramic tile. Anything non-porous like that the clay won't permanently stick to are good work surfaces. In my home studio where I work, I have countertop in the form of Formica or laminate, and that works super well with oven baked polymer clay. The clay won't permanently stick to it. There's no reaction between clay and it. Also, if you have like every once in a while you can go to a home store and pick up a piece of laminate that maybe someone has, it comes out of like a sink cutout. That is a really great find to have, like a portable workstation made out of laminate. So you can buy those really cheaply. It's actually just the big rectangle that comes out of a countertop. When someone orders a countertop with a sink in it, then the sink cutout is of great use for crafting. You could cover a work surface with a one of those cheap vinyl tablecloths that are kind of slick and non-porous and easy to wipe clean. I've used some of those when I've had to travel and needed a portable work surface. You can also order real inexpensive silicone mats from various places now and put those down. So I just added some little orange buds in the background, and I'm going to use this tool to prick a detail. So when you're making these floral slabs, the point of them is that there's just a lot of detail and a lot of things going on in the background. It's not just all about the flowers that we made, but it's like the subtle details are what people really like about these slabs. And so you just keep adding detail after detail after detail. And basically we could do that all day, but we probably need to move on to the next part. So once I have my slab the way I want it, I want to make sure I have enough slab available to cut out the shape of this lid. And this is just the seal from the jar. So I took the jar apart and then I just took that out of there. And that makes for a really great shape that helps me know that I have enough clay. Actually, though, when I cut my shape out, I'm going to use the inner ring here because when I put this back in, I want to make sure that the clay will stick up through that ring. So I'll use this as my template. And then I need to get 2 pieces out that are this teardrop shape. So maybe I'll do those first so that my earrings have like a really nice, you know, blending of flowers on each one. I think I'll do 1 teardrop here and 1 here so that this pair of earrings is going to have 1 purple and 1 teal flower on it. And then if I want to, for the other pair, I'll just go right here and one of them will have part of a flower on it. I'll cut that out. And now I need to take my little knife tool and just cut around the inside. And you can move this all around and kind of audition it where you want it to be. And then I'll use my knife tool to cut out the shape I need for my lid top. Okay, now I'll just peel away the excess. And anytime I make cuts in my clay, I always go back and do a smoothing technique with my fingers and make sure it looks really nice, ship shape, neat work. And then that's how that will go. I'm going to position this on my lid just to make sure it fits really well. And then also I'll make sure the ring, you know, that it's going to stick up nicely through the ring like that. So when I put this in my oven to bake it, I'm going to bake it right on this lid so that it fits really nicely. And you can put these lids in the oven. They bake it oven baked clay bakes at only 275 for about 30 minutes. And even this sealing part that's here, it won't be damaged or changed at all by that low of a temperature. So I'll bake the lid topper right like that. To make the floral slab earrings, which are these, I'm going to go ahead and poke a hole right up here at the top to be used for the jump ring. And I'll show you how to do that. And then we'll make these little toppers out of the terrazzo slab. So I'll just take a needle or the blunt point tool and just poke a hole right up here. Unless you have a way to drill holes in pieces after they're baked, it's probably best if you just go ahead and poke holes with the tools that you see here. I'm using the clay tool starter set, and it has a lot of really nice tools in it. Well, it has this tool and the needle tool, which make it super easy to poke holes.
Hey, Amy, on the lid, would you pop that off after baking and glue it?
Yes, I would. So when that comes out of the oven, I would pop that off there. It's not going to stick permanently at all. So I would just pop it off with my fingernail, and then I would reapply it permanently to the lid with a silicone glue. I feel like silicone glue works really well between non-porous surfaces like the clay itself and the metal. Okay, I'll set this piece aside and we'll work with it later when we make those earrings. Okay, so these ones are ready to go in the oven. That's the teardrop and the top. Now let's go ahead and talk about how I finished it with the lace piece. And here I have one that's already baked. This is what it looks a little bit like. Here, I'll show you. This is an unbaked one. You can see it's real shiny, and then this one is baked. So these silicone molds are so easy to work with. They're so flexible. You just flex it like this to get it started, and then you can just peel the liquid clay piece right out like that. Okay, and then that's ready to work with. Now, if I take my jar, and what I'll do is, this worked out really nicely because each piece, I had to make 2 of these to go all the way around. If you just make 1, you could go around the front like that. Or you could make 2 of them and go around the back as well, which is what I did. So you can use some quick instant drying glue to adhere this to your jar. And I'm just going to put a few little dabs. You could do a few at a time, and then you could always go back and add more because it's probably going to start drying before I can, get done. And I'll just put this right across where those words are. And the sides of the jar have some lines on them, and I'll just try to line up to that as best as I can to keep it, straight and parallel. And that's how you can apply this nice coordinating ribbon wrap to the outside of your jar. And you can put one on the front and one on the back. And then you can fill it with Jordan almonds like Jen did here. And you've got a great looking little party favor or hostess gift. All right, let's move on to the next project. And that is going to be the terrazzo pattern. And terrazzo is another just super popular pattern right now. This is what it looks like. This takes quite a bit of clay. So what I have here is an entire bar of white for the background, and that's what you see here. And then I have the entire bar of white mixed with half a bar of gray granite, and that's what has given me my speckledy background that you see here. Now I have an extra jar, and what I want to do is this piece has been run through my pasta machine on the 2nd thickest setting. And so what I want to kind of do is guesstimate if this is going to be enough to wrap around. And it won't quite be enough, but in the end, I want to run it through my pasta machine one more time on the 3rd thickest setting and stretch it out even more to make all those beautiful colors that we're going to apply on the top. We're going to make all of those kind of sink into the background so that this is perfectly level. So I can stretch that one more time through my machine. All right, so next what I want to do is I want to start decorating this with colors. And I'm just going to pinch off flat pieces of each color and smashing them down. And this gives you the terrazzo look. And you just want to relax and have fun with it and make it really colorful and random.
Can you talk a little bit about hand washing things that have polymer clay on them?
Yes. So thank you, Jen. That's a great question and topic, because if you're going to make things that get used, say like a flower vase or anything that's going to get required to be washed every now and then, you do not want to put them in the dishwasher. So oven baked clay would survive the dishwasher, but over time, what might happen is probably more likely the glue or the glue that you might glue something together with would break down. What I want to say is you really want to treat your oven baked clay projects more like art, functional art, than like the type of thing that would be dishwashed. So I would say you can do whatever you want to, as long as you intend to hand wash it later and take good care of it, just like you would a piece of art, if that makes sense. What I'm adding now is the rest of that gray granite that didn't have any extra white in it, and I'm putting that on the sheet now. I like to tear my pieces as I'm doing this because that really gives me random shapes. I find sometimes my skill is to make the same thing over and over. So I have to force myself to find ways to make things more random. And I found that tearing the clay, especially thin sheets like this, is a really good technique that fools me into making things randomly. So tearing thin sheets is the way to go for me. I just want to make sure I've got kind of an even distribution of each of these colors. And Jen, can you give me a time check?
It's 5:32.
Okay, so we got 28 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's those three. Let me just keep going with the orange.
And Amy, in terms of glue, can people use Gorilla Glue if they want to?
Yes, I think so. Especially if you were gluing, you know, to something that's going to lend itself better to Gorilla Glue. I think that I have used that product every once in a while. Silicone glue, instant dry glues work really well. What does not work well is hot glue. For some reason, hot glue, I guess because polymer clay is really pretty non-porous, the hot glue really has nothing to dig in and stick to. And so every time I've used hot glue, I've had pieces just pop back apart. So that's the one glue that you really probably should steer clear of for gluing pieces together. All right, one more color, and that's this green. And just tearing and getting it everywhere. So fun, so doodly and fun. I love that. Love the randomness. I probably could have done a better job getting little bitty pieces in here. I've got lots and lots of bigger pieces, so, but that's okay. I think you get the idea. Okay, now just to seat all these pieces down together, first thing I'm going to do is roll it with my acrylic roller. And that will help my foreground pieces really mesh well with my background. Now it wants to stick to my work mat, so in order to get it to kind of work with me and keep flattening out, I need to peel that up. So before we get this way too thin or very thin, I'm going to take my earring cuts out of this. So if you remember when I introduced this project, these floral slab earrings, they have terrazzo tops. Let me get closer so you can see. And then these are the actual terrazzo earrings that I made, and they were made with squares. So I want to get these cuts out while this sheet of clay is still fairly thick. So I am going to use my square cutters for this shape of earrings. And I'll just go right here on the edge and take out a couple random cuts. And this is the largest square that comes in this little square cutter set. I'll cut out 2 of those. And then I'll cut the center out of those with this really tiny square right here. So I'll just, I like when I cut the squares out, I kind of like to go off center. I think it gives more visual interest. So that's what I'm doing. And those 2 pieces are going to be the toppers for my floral slab earrings. So I need to go ahead and poke a little hole in these so they can be assembled with jump rings later. And I'll set those aside to be baked. So what I'm going for there is these little squares that'll be at the top of the floral slab. I've got those ready to go now. And then for the top of these terrazzo earrings, I will make a solid square at the top. Now this piece is way too thin for the earring topper. So I'm going to fold it in half and re-roll it. So now it's double thick. And I'll cut out 2 of these little square shapes. And these will also need little holes in the bottom to assemble as earrings after they are baked. So I'll go ahead and poke that in the top. And now those earrings are ready to go. For this ear part, I'm going to use a really oversized jump ring right through here. And that goes right through the hole. I'll lay it on my hand so you can see. That big jump ring goes right through the open hole and then through the little hole in the diamond at the top. So now those are ready to go. No holes required. Okay, now I have this sheet that I want to get large enough to go around my vase. So I'm going to put this through my pasta machine one more time. It's already on the second thickest setting. So now I'm going to go down to the third and sheet it through here very carefully. Raina, do you want to put me on my front facing so they can see this? I'll try really hard to get it through. There we go. Hello. Oh, I got my glasses on. Darn it. Now you know I wear glasses. Okay, so that really thinned that out. And also what's cool about how it thinned it is you can't really see it all that well from your vantage point, but it kind of made all the colors thinner too, and you can kind of see through them now. So let's do one last check to make sure this will go around our vase at least once so that we can create that wrap. We're going to have a wrap all the way around the bottom, and then we're going to have a wrap higher up. So yes, I've got plenty of clay there now. And let me set my vase aside for just a second. What I want to do first is trim this scrap off of the edge way up here. And I'm going to trim it in a way that gives me the most real estate left over. So I'm just barely trimming off the scrappies. And set those aside because we can use those. We want to use our scrappies. And then what I want to do is I need to trim some straight pieces that are going to go across the top. I'm also going to trim down here. And that's more scrappy. And then I'll use that ruler again to, I just want to cut like a 1/2 inch wide band to put higher up on the vase. Or I could have went like with 3/4 or something, but I think you get the idea of how the design is going to play out. And then on one end, I want to cut a vertical straight edge to position that on the edge of the vase. So now I have this scrap, or not scrap, I've got my big sheet. Where I'm going to start is right with a corner, because the corner gives me a nice straight edge. And I'm going to line this up to the straight edge of the corner and then along the straight edge bottom of the vase. And then I'll just go around, making sure I'm still lined up to the bottom. And I'm letting my clay kind of hang down. I'm letting the weight of the clay kind of pull it straight. And now that's my 4th side. So I just want to lay this down and then trim a straight edge with my blade. And voila, there we go. Now, what I want to do next is I want to smooth this seam with my fingertips. And another good practice would be to roll over this with your acrylic roller to make sure that any air bubbles that might get, oh, I need to fix this. I got a little bobble there. So that if there's any air trapped between the clay and the glass, it gets worked out toward one of the open sides of the clay. Okay. Then what I want to do is I'm going to once again use my ruler. I'm going to lay this flat down. I'm going to use my ruler as a guide, because what I want to do is create a negative space like I did on this one. I have this even negative space all the way around. And so you just need to use something with a straight edge to create that negative space. And so I'm using my ruler. I'm going to start again on a corner, and then I'm going to work my way around like so. Now, this clay does not actually bond with the glass, and there's really no way to make it actually bond with the glass. You could glue it on there, but any glue that's going to be like good for non-porous isn't actually going to ever bond ever. So my point is that while it doesn't bond, it will just stay on there. It really will. You'll be hard pressed to get it back off there unless you just drop the whole thing and break it. And so you really can't get this back off unless you just try. And especially the way we're going with our design all the way around, it's really going to stay on there, especially if you're just using this to hold flowers and you're going to hand wash it. It's really going to stay on there for a really, really long time and be very pretty and very enjoyable. So let's take a look. So on this one, my random pieces came out to be a lot more small and large, and this one came out to be a lot of larges, and they're both very pretty, but both very unique and different. So put this whole vase right in the oven. You can bake glass at 275 without any problem. The clay will not shrink, it won't expand. It's going to become just a beautiful work of art that you can use every day. So that one's ready to bake too. Okay, our final setup is going to be turning all these scraps into marbled clay. And we're going to use our marbled or randomly marbled clay to create this planter piece, and also to create the bottom half of these earrings, these little marbled things. So I love making pieces that you can mix and match, and they all match because they're all the same colors, but yet the three different patterns are very complementary, just kind of like how fabric works out. All right, now I brought back what's left over from our floral slab, and yes, we are going to wad that up and use it for scrap. So what's really pretty cool is that scrap clay makes the best randomized marbling. So I'm going to use my terrazzo that I've got here, and I'm going to use my floral, and I might just even keep those separate and make two different pieces. So all I'm doing is working this into a ball of clay that doesn't have a lot of air trapped inside, is what I'm doing there. And then I'm going to make it into a ball because that's a good place to start. And then I'm rolling it into a fat little log like this, and then I'm twisting. And that's when you're going to start getting those super beautiful stripes that really you can't get with any other effect, because it's all random, it's unplanned, it just works. And I always keep my scrap clays kind of color coordinated with each other, so that when I want to make, you know, some stripy effects, I've got lots of beautiful scrap clay to do that with. So there's one, and I'll do the same thing with this floral slab that we had left over. Now, another way you can do this to get even more stripes is to bend your log in half. If you twist it like so, and then you bend that in half and bend it in half again, you just really start multiplying the little stripes that happen. I'll try to show you how we can get a lot more stripes than I did on that first one. So roll this out thin. Yes, Jen?
Can you talk a little bit about how you store your scrap clay?
Yes. So good way to store scrap clay is in like food grade plastic boxes, storage boxes. The important thing about storing scrap clay is you want to keep it clean and cool. You don't want it to accidentally cure in a warm place. You don't want it to accidentally get covered with dust and dander and animal hair or your own hair. So the two rules are keep it cool and keep it clean. So food grade storage boxes are fine, like plastic boxes with plastic lids. You can also wrap each of these pieces of scrap clay. You could wrap them in kitchen wrap or in deli wrap that you can get from big box stores until you're ready to use it. And like I said earlier, a helpful tip for me is really to keep my scraps kind of color coordinated. That way, when I want to pull them back out and do a beautiful rope like this, I have like scraps that go well together, and all I have to do is wad them up and start doing that thing like I just showed you. So I see that I'm getting way crooked here. All right, so what do we do next? The next thing we can do is flatten this out because we're going to need it really flat for applying to our planter and for making our earrings. So I've got this nice flat sheet of stripes. I'm going to put my pasta machine on the thickest setting and press this back through. And voila, there I have those beautiful stripes. And all I need is one circle, one of the large circles cut out to finish off this pair of earrings. Like so. The bottom half is the marbly part that you see. So I'll just cut one of these out, and I'm just going to kind of cut it out of the place that I like best. And then I'm going to cut this one in half. And I'll add my holes for the jump rings. And I'll bring this circle back that we cut earlier out of the floral slab, and I'll cut it in half, and this will be the top. So in order to get that blue flower on both sides, I cut it right in half. And the way these will get assembled is that this piece will go on top and this piece will go on top. So that means I need little holes for jump rings. I need one at the top for the dangle. I need one at the bottom for a jump ring. And then I need one at the top of this piece for a jump ring. So 3 holes, 1, 2, 3. I'll do that same thing again over here. 1, 2, 3. And these get baked, and that will be our 3rd pair of earrings. We've got quite the collection of things over here that need to be baked. Okay, now that I have this, I have my earring pieces all cut out, I can go ahead and flatten this even more. And I'm going to press it through my conditioning machine on the thickest setting again, and then on the second thickest setting. And same with this one. I want to flatten this one out. So I'm going to hand flatten it first. And then I'm going to press it through my machine. And if you feel like you're going to need more circles, you can flatten it even again. So I love this little marbly effect with those speckles from the gray granite. So here's what we're doing next is we're going to cut out a lot of circles to decorate this planter. Now first, to prepare the planter, I painted this with a high gloss white acrylic paint. And I used enough coats to make it really solid and shiny. For some reason, oven baked polymer clay loves to stick to glossy acrylic paint. I found this out on accident, but it has really served me well. So all we got to do now is cut out a lot of circles and stick them to our pot. So I'll start with my biggest shape of circle, and it would be nice if I cut with the cutting side. That would help. And I'll see if I can get some other sizes out of my scraps. Now also, if you don't have the glossy paint, or if you just want to really ensure a good stick, you can use, oh boy, I didn't put the lid back on my super glue. You can also use super glue and attach pieces right to your pot. The super glue can go in the oven, although I'm not sure that super glue would tell you that, but I do it all the time. And I'm sticking my circles right onto my pot, and I'm kind of turning the stripes so that it looks super random. And so I'll just go ahead and cut out a lot more of these that can be decorating the pot.
And then on the vase that you made, how long did you bake that in the oven?
This vase here, I baked it for 30 minutes, even though it's not, so our directions for Premo are bake for 30 minutes per 1/4 inch of thickness, and this clay is not a 1/4 inch thick. But I know from all my years of working with Premo that you can still go the full 30 minutes and it won't do anything except just make sure it gets absolutely as strong as it can. So I did it for 30 minutes, even though you could probably just do 15. So good question. I'm just going to keep cutting out little circles and adding them randomly here to this little planter. Gives it a really fresh, springy look there. So once you have enough circles on there to make it to your liking, the whole pot goes right in the oven. And I'm saying that these circles will stick on here and stay on here really well. But if you want to go the extra bit and make sure that they're really stuck on well, you can always use super glue to secure them as well. All right, so I will take a couple minutes. Can someone give me a time check?
5:53.
Okay, so we need to take just a few minutes and talk about jewelry assembly. Because unless, just shout out your questions if you have them, but I do want to show you how I, put these together in case people don't know how to use jump rings and stuff. So in this earring pair, the top bauble has a post glued to the back. So this is a post earring. And then I used this really large jump ring. I'm just going to take this apart so you can see what it looks like. And this is kind of a thin jump ring. So I'm just using 1 plier in my fingers. And you can see, I think this one is almost a centimeter large. So when you open jump rings, I want to be sure everyone knows that when you open jump rings, you don't pull them open, you twist them open. So this is an open jump ring. And in order to close it, I would move this plier forward and this plier backwards. And then you want to line up that little gap right across from each other. So you're always twisting jump rings open like so, and then twisting them back together. And that way there's still a lot of pressure in the metal to squeeze back together. So let me open that one more time and we'll reassemble the earring. So open. Now, if you open, close, open, close, open, close these, you can weaken them. So don't do what I just did and open, close. Just open them once, get them closed, and then they'll stay for a really nice long time. So that's how that pair worked with the jump ring going right through that center hole. And I like that look a lot. Maybe we could take a look at this pair. This one is a little more complex. It has an ear wire at the top. Then it has a tiny jump ring, and then a larger jump ring, and then even a larger jump ring to hold the clay elements together. The point of this tiny jump ring way up here is just to make sure that the ear wire itself is oriented correctly. So the way you want to put together 2 pieces of oven baked clay that have the holes poked in them is I'll just open this and I twist 1 plier toward me and 1 away. And these are flat nose pliers. And then I can just take that 1 piece off the bottom if I've opened it well. And that's how that works. So another tip that you might want to know is when you start putting assembling a pair of earrings, if you go through the back side of this one, then you also want to go through the back side of the other piece so that as they connect together, you've got both fronts facing the same way. Because I didn't make these pieces like reversible. So one side is actually prettier than the other. And then just twist those back together till the little gap seals. And there you have it. That's how you use jump rings. Are there any more questions?
Yes. Can you use liquid polymer clay to adhere the shapes to the pot before baking?
Okay, that is a really good question. No, You can't, because liquid polymer is too slick. And unless you could position this dot with liquid polymer and hold it that way in the oven, that's the only way it would stay. If you tried to glue all these on with liquid polymer and then you put that in your oven, they would all slide down. So you need something really tacky to secure the clay dots to the pot. That's where that acrylic paint comes in handy, because the acrylic paint it's glossy, which has a tacky surface. It's also completely dry. And so the tack of the paint kind of grabs the smoothness of the clay and makes it all stay together in one place. Whereas the liquid polymer, these would it's too slick and those would just run off and just fall off in the oven. So that's not a good application for it in that situation. That's a great question.
And what about when watering plants or adding water to a vase? Will that cause any damage to the polymer clay? Does it need to be sealed after baking to avoid damage?
No, the polymer clay does not need to be sealed. It is waterproof. Unless you were to submerge polymer clay underwater for years, it's not going to look any different. So there's no problem with the clay coming in contact with water. It's perfectly fine. We make coasters all the time with polymer clay, which you know, is waterproof. So no, you don't need to seal them. I would, for the longevity of the pot though, the one thing that might make it fade over a long period of time would be direct UV rays, but that would be, even a pot like this that's angled down is not going to get enough direct sunlight to damage it or fade it. The clay will last every bit as long as the pot or the paint. So good question. Okay, what time is it now?
5:59.
All right, I've got to do my outtake here, because we want you to know that if you've been at all inspired to try some of the techniques or some of the projects that we've shown you here, we would love to see what you've made. So if you post things on your social media accounts, please tag us with either hashtag Sculpey or hashtag HowDoYouSculpey, and also use the hashtag make it with Michaels, so that we can find you and we can see what you've made. We want to be as inspired by your work as hopefully you are as inspired by ours. So happy March. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you soon on our next community classroom. Bye.